Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a regularly scheduled Board of Ed meeting for the East Windsor Regional School District. Had it set up. Written advance notice of this meeting was provided at least 48 hours ago. Such notice provided the time, date, and location of this meeting and included the agenda to the extent it was known at the time. Notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with law. Minutes of this meeting are being kept at the board by the board secretary and will be made available promptly to any member of the public requesting them from the board secretary at 25A Leshen Lane, Hightstown, New Jersey. Minutes will be provided at cost and accordance with board policy. Are there any board members present who believe this meeting to be in violation of the Open Public Meeting Act? There being none, we may proceed. In compliance with the fire code of the state of New Jersey, I call your attention to the emergency exits for this room, which are located behind the audience and to our left and right. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item C.
Having read the materials received, I move the agenda be approved as submitted.
Second.
Poll the board, please.
Ms. Bergioli?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes.
Mr. Laverty?
Yes.
Ms. Mahiri?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes. Item D.
Be it resolved that the East Windsor Regional School District may hold 2 closed sessions at this meeting. These closed sessions concern personnel, HIB report of October 13th, 2025, and negotiations. Minutes of these closed sessions will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Second.
Poll the board, please.
Ms. Bergioli?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes.
Mr. Laverty?
Yes.
Ms. Mahiri?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes. We now move on to our student representative report.
Good evening, board members. Although Sophia is not with me today, I could speak for both of us in saying that we're excited to share another update. To start, Sophia and I have received feedback from the students who are glad that they finally got an update on the new principal, with many students happy that Mr. Vincent is back at the high school. Next, on Friday, October 3rd, we finally had our pep rally at the high school, where the energy was incredible as each grade performed their lip sync dances and participated in fun games like the tug of war and musical chairs. In terms of sports, football, cheer, marching band, gymnastics, field hockey, and soccer all celebrated their senior nights, with gymnastics taking home a win. Additionally, Coach Counts was officially announced as the new basketball coach. On Wednesday, October 8th, freshmen, sophomores, and juniors participated in the PSATs, while the seniors gathered for their annual class photo. Next, the MCTS assembly occurred, where we had representatives speak to the underclassmen about the various programs that they offer there. And on Friday, we celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month, during which students showcased their beautiful quinceañera dresses and shared insights about Hispanic culture and dances. It was a fun showcase of Hispanic culture that was felt across the school during the end of day parade. As a final note, the student body is looking forward to the fall sports starting up, with interest meetings happening earlier this week and next week. Thank you for listening to this report.
Thank you very much. I heard great things about the little parade that went around the school. Students really enjoyed that. Thanks. Okay, we will now move on to our state assessment update presentation.
Okay, I'm going to call Miss Sandy Small up to the podium. I guess she's getting prepared back there. Each year, each school district in New Jersey is required to provide an update regarding student performance on the spring state assessment, the NJSLA. So this will serve as an update regarding the spring 2025 NJSLA.
For those of you listening at home, we're just standing by for some technical difficulties to be resolved.
Thank you. Thanks for your patience, everyone. Technology is a wonderful thing when it works. Yep. Okay, so tonight we're going to go over the NJSLA. I apologize to you for my back in there. We're going to go through the NJSLA data from the 2024-25 school year. There are going to be some slides that are here because they're informational that I'm not going to go through in detail, and I'll go through explain. So the one thing I'm going to ask everyone to do is to don't panic on any individual slide. We're going to talk about as we move along where things are going. So if you just bear with me, and if you have a question, because there are a couple slides that might be a little confusing, just please stop me to make sure that you're on the same page. So what we're going to work through is look at the NJSLA is the English Language Arts in grades 3 through 9, math in grades 3 through 8, along with Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and Geometry, the science in grades 5, 8, and 11, the dynamic learning maps. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the number of years that our students are in district versus the data and our demographics. As a reminder, NJSLA performance levels are in 5. We have levels 1 and 2, which we consider below level. The state talks about not yet ready and partially meeting, and then level 3 would be approaching expectations. Level 4 is meeting, and level 5 is exceeding. So we talk about levels 4 and 5 as meeting or exceeding together. When we go through our first slide, when we compare our district to the state, what you're going to see in the far right side is that it appears that we are below the state in all grade levels with the exception of grade 7. That in itself can be a panic, but this is where I asked you earlier, don't go into a panic yet. Let's go through and look through the next couple slides, and this should explain some things. So if we look at this data, and this is really important that we talk year over year, where were we and where are we now? Because it's really important for us to be able to compare where we were 3 years ago to where we are now. So when we look at our English language arts in grades 3 through 9, back from 2022 to current 2025, what we are seeing is in our middle school in grades 6, 7, and 8, our percentage of students who are meeting or exceeding have increased tremendously. In grades 3 and 9, we have increased nicely, not as quickly as we'd like to. We still are seeing some struggles in grades 4 and 5. Okay. Then show you. And then this slide is the one that's confusing, but I think it's the most important slide for us to be able to focus on, because if we look at our last slide is really talking about apples versus oranges. It's really talking about the students in grade 3 throughout the years, which is a different group of students each time. When we go through and we look at this current slide where we talk about apples to apples, it comes out to be that cohort of students in a given grade. So if you follow through with me, I'm looking at the orange block, and if you look at the orange block for 2023 for grade 3, and I apologize, I'm going to put my back to you because I've got to be able to see those numbers. It would be 25.7, that orange block, if you're all with me there, for level 1. And then the orange block in level 2, which is 20.2. Everybody sees where I am for those two? So that group that were in 3rd grade in 2023, I'm going to ask you now to focus on the bottom box for me. You're going to see that group of students, 46% of those students in 2022 were below level. If we follow that orange block to where they are last year when they took this test, which was grade 5, you would add up your 15 and your 18.3, and you will see that we are now at 33.3%. So you will see we have decreased the number of students who are below level. Does that make sense where we are there? Because this one's important for us to be able to see the number of students that we have been able to move in the trajectory of learning. And then I'm going to ask you to stick with that same orange box in that meeting and exceeding area. And if you look at that orange box in 2023 under level 4 and level 5, you are going to see 28.4 and 1.2. Rounding that up, you're going to see that we were at approximately 30% of our students were meeting or exceeding expectations when this cohort was in 3rd grade. As we moved up the line and they're now in 5th grade, we are seeing that roughly 45% of them are meeting or exceeding. So we have decreased the number of students who were below level like we want to, and we have increased the number of students who are meeting or exceeding like we want to. Does that all make sense? Okay, so if we stick to the orange, if I walk away because I want to be able to see these numbers, I'm hoping you can still hear me. So if you go through and look at the orange box itself, and I want to start in level 1 because it's important that you can see this. So in level 1, you're going to see the orange box is 25.7, and then in level 2, the orange box is 20.2. When I bring those two together, it comes out to that 45.9%. Okay, so that's where that, in that box below, where it talks about 5th grade, because they were 5th graders last year for this test. And then if you follow that orange box, stay in levels 1 and levels 2,
That box was a little confusing, so thanks to Mark for pointing, that's what it meant. Thank you.
You guys are all good with that one now? All right, perfect. So if I continue on this, the next several slides are mandated slides to be able to view when we talk about the demographics in each of the grade levels. So if we look through here for ELA 3, if you look in that second column of data where it talks about the average scale score, you're going to see the average scale score of that 742, which is what the state's average was. And then if you look at the district, is at 734, and our two elementary schools are in that 733, 734 area. If you go down through our demographics, you will see with the arrow pointing at the demographics that are exceeding where the state's scale score average was. And here you're going to see our demographics are our Asian population, our white population, and our non-economically disadvantaged. What you will notice in most of these slides, our non-economically disadvantaged is exceeding the state in almost every area that we are going to be looking at. If you go over to the far right, in the meeting or exceeding, you're going to see that the state is at almost 45% that is meeting or exceeding. The district is at 38%, and the two elementary schools are very similar to the district. You will once again see our Asian population at 69%, our white population at 52%, and our non-economically disadvantaged at 53%. And that would follow suit when I click on the next couple slides for ELA 4. And this is something we can painstakingly go through every single slide. But if you understand where to look at it when you go through looking at this at your leisure, you'll be able to see it's the same thing. And that would be for ELA 5, ELA 6, ELA 7. And I'm going through these because I'm going to summarize it in a moment. ELA 8. This next slide, which is our middle school ELA levels, this is the next slide that I want you to focus on. And I'm going to move around again because I want to make sure that you are looking at the same lines as me. So I apologize if home can't hear me, but it's important that you're hearing, that you're seeing this. So I'm going to ask you, first of all, to go through and look at that very first line that says ELA 6 COMP. What that is our comprehensive ELA in grade 6. It's our general ed students who are not quite ready for grade level, and we need to give them some supports. So if you look at that third box, which is that meeting or exceeding, that doesn't look great that it's 17% of our students, but if you look at that far right box, 56% of those students that are in that program have increased their level in the NDSLA, which means they either went from level 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, and then therefore they are growing, but the state data doesn't necessarily show that, which is why this is important to be able to show this. If we go through and look at the third box, down the bottom, ELA 8 advanced group, you're going to see 99% of those students are meeting or exceeding expectations. If I go through, I want to look at, I'm going to go back to 6th grade for a minute. SE6 means our special ed grade 6, and our ESL 6 is our ESL grade 6 students. If you look at that meeting and exceeding, sometimes that can be a little alarming as well. But when you look at those populations of 35% and 23% that are moving up a level, those are promising numbers for us. Okay, so that's what I want to be able to look through as we're looking at this. Does that make sense the way this is laid out?
Just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that the ESL 6, 7, and 8, so that's like 62% is below average, right?
No.
And then 79.
No, so tell me what, ask your question.
I just want to, so the numbers, like the 72.5 and then 79.7 and the 75%. So that means that those ESL, they're below?
Yes, so this is, so if you remember when I talked about our levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 and 2, which would be below, so I combined those levels 1 and 2 together for the percentage below, with the level 3 is the approaching, and the meeting exceeding is levels 4 to 5. So yes, that's the percentage of students that are below.
Okay, so then if we stay on that example, so the number 7. So the number 7, is that the number of students, like
Yeah.
7 students?
So the thing without percentage are the number of students, yes, which is where those percentages come in.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And then the next slide is our ELA 9. ELA 9 is not as promising as the middle school is, and there's some work that we're going to have to go through doing with that, but I want to be able to compare ELA 9 with those ELA levels in our middle school, in our high school. And if you look at this, you look at our honors are doing as well as our 8th grade advanced. We have 99% of our students that are meeting or exceeding. We come up to our standard academic, special ed, and our ESL population, we've got some issues. But when we go through and look at the percentage moving, we're not quite moving that needle as much as we need to in those levels. So we have some work that we have to do there for our ELA 9 group here. Good for ELA? Okay, we're going to go into math, and I'm going to try not to focus on giving you everything that I did in ELA, but if you have a question on one of them, please feel free to stop me. We talk about the district versus the state in math. Again, if you focus on that last column, it doesn't look good. It looks like we're far below in all of these areas. So we want to say, okay, but is there anything that is happening? So when we go through this and we look year over year, are we growing even among ourselves within here? So you will see in this case, in grades 3, 6, geometry, and algebra 1, we are making great strides. In the other grades, we're moving, just not as quickly. So I always give us that if we've moved 10 percentage points or more, I say we're accelerating. Those others, we're moving, but we're just not moving quickly enough. If we look at the apples to apples, you could go through that same progression that we did in ELA, but I will tell you, we are not seeing the same cohort results that we did in ELA. Part of our caveat on this is in 7th and 8th grade, those students who are taking algebra and geometry are no longer with their cohort peers. They are in another cohort because they take the algebra test or geometry. So those students who had been meeting or exceeding in those prior cohorts have been removed from that. So those numbers don't quite add up, so it's not as clean to look at. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you? So if we had 20% of our population in 7th grade course 2, and all 20% of them, or 98% of them, were meeting or exceeding, we've pulled them out of that cohort now because they're now in either Algebra 1 or Geometry, so it's automatically going to bring some of those numbers down. That's why this isn't a quite fair comparison as ELA is. However, there is still some concerns. I'm not going to tell you there is not. In the next few slides, again, we'll be comparing each of the grade levels compared to the state and the demographics. You're going to see, once again, the average scale score with the state in comparison to the district, our 2 elementary schools, and all of the demographic areas, including students with disabilities, multilingual learners, non-economically disadvantaged, and economically disadvantaged. And your focus can be on the average scale score as well as the percentage of students meeting or exceeding expectations with the next several slides. That would be your math for grade 4, grade 5, and I'm not expecting you to look through each of these right now, but just that I give you the overarching. If we now go back and look at this middle school math levels, and in math in the middle school, we have more levels than we do in ELA. So I'm going to ask you to focus on a couple of things, which I'm going to move once again. If you focus on the very top line, which is our pre-algebra, in 6th grade, it is our double accelerated group. You will see that every student who took this test met or exceeded the expectation. It says 98 because one student did not test. Okay, so I didn't want to say 100% of the students who tested. I looked at 98% of the students in the program met or exceeded the program. So that's what some of the numbers don't match. So you look up to our Algebra 1, and our Algebra 1 is 7th grade, there's some of our 7th graders who are double accelerated, our 8th graders who are accelerated, and then our high school students. And typically our Algebra 1 students our students in the high school who take Algebra 1 are students who are on level and sometimes struggle in math. So putting that in there where you're going to see that the state number is 38% of the students in the state are meeting or exceeding expectations. You see the district as an overarching is 27%. But if you look at our middle school with our accelerated kids, we are well above 80% on that. Our high school is at 7.3% on that one. If you look at our demographics, that's the combination of the middle school and high school. If you go to geometry, again, this is similar to the Algebra 1. You're going to have the middle school and the high school as well. You're going to see 56% of the state. The district mirrors the state. The middle school is at 88%. The high school is at 27%. That 27% for the high school, to me, was a little bit more concerning than even that 7% in Algebra 1, because those students who took this test are 9th graders in geometry, and they are accelerated students. So I have concerns that if we have those students who are taking this test in the high school, and there are 64 of them, and only less than 30% of them are meeting or exceeding, something's not adding up for me there. In our next slide, when we looked at that,
Sandy, I'm
Yep,
sorry.
surely.
Can we go back to Algebra 1 for a
Surely.
second? I guess my concern is, and I understand about the double accelerated, but I almost feel like we really emphasize double accelerated kids in the middle school, and we kind of almost make it seem like, and maybe it's just the way I'm interpreting it, like if you're a 9th grader and you're taking Algebra 1, well, then you must struggle with math. It could just be that they didn't want to follow that double accelerated course for whatever reason. But it's really concerning to me that just a 9th grader taking Algebra 1 is as low as they are. Because they should have had the skills through CREPS to be able to do well.
Nicole, I agree with you. That's why I say that 7% is alarming to me. That 300, the fact that we have 315 of those students sitting in the high school taking this, it's not like years ago, and I'll say prior to pandemic, we were at less than half of the 9th grade were taking Algebra 1. We are now closer to 65, 70% of our 9th grade. So that is alarming that percentage is taking it and we are that low. 100% agree.
Because then, I mean, it's always hard too, because then you learn what you learn in algebra, and then you have geometry, which isn't like algebra, and then you're shoving them in. Yeah, but then you're putting them into Algebra 2, which is one of the tougher courses here that you have to take. That's just what's concerning to me, because if you're struggling in Algebra 1, then you get this year off almost just from algebra to do geometry, and now you're being thrown into Algebra 2.
So just that, if the concern is that we're taking that year off between them, you're really not, because we are using the skills from Algebra 1 for geometry. That's why you need to take Algebra 1 before geometry, because many of those skills from algebra are part of the geometry. It is a little bit of it's a different part of your brain that's happening in geometry, but the skill, like if someone takes geometry prior to algebra, they're going to struggle in geometry because they haven't built those skills in Algebra 1 that are necessary for the geometry.
Right, but Algebra 2 is still a complete, I mean, I'll use my own kids as an example, did great in geometry, didn't do bad in Algebra 1, really struggled in Algebra 2. Like, really struggled. So, and these are kids that can do math, so that's my concern for these kids in Algebra 1.
Nicole, it's 100% a concern that we have this many students that are struggling in Algebra 1, and they need to continue with geometry in Algebra 2. I'm not going to disagree with you there at all. I'm with you. So the next one I want to go to is Algebra 2. This looks phenomenal until you really look at this slide. How many non-economically disadvantaged students are in our double accelerated program taking Algebra 2 in 9th grade? 3. So when we pull those economically disadvantaged kids and we have this elite group, we're excelling them. We have the skills to be able to work with our students. We have to be able to break down those skills to meet the needs of all of our students. And you're going to see that toward the end as to our next steps. So this looks really great, but we're not dealing with the total population that we did in every other grade level in there, just trying to make sure that you're seeing this one correctly. We look at the high school math levels. This slide doesn't even do justice to what we should have. Those honors students in 9th grade, and this is only 9th graders taking this test, 49% of them are meeting or exceeding, and there are honors students, whether they're honors algebra 1, honors geometry, or honors algebra 2, that number has to come up. So we are struggling right now with that program in there. If I get to academic level, which is where the majority of our students sit, we have 6% and only 33% of them are showing growth. This is a concern. Here's the slide that I want to be able to focus a little bit on because I kept trying to spin my wheels. What is happening? What are we missing? How are we going to improve this? And if you remember when, was it in the summer that we talked about NJGPA? We started talking about the length of time students are in district with us. So I needed to take some closer looks at some things. So as I looked for I'm going to focus on ELA, and math is very similar. If you look at the students who are assessed in grades 3 through 9, we have a total of 2,854. I apologize if my numbers are a little off. My vision is a little bit focused on the numbers here. So you're going to see 72% of those students were with us more than 3 years. And you will see that 48% of them have been successful. As we go down to students who are in district for a year or fewer, we are at almost a little bit more than 20% of those students that are meeting or exceeding. So we're missing the boat with our students who come into district throughout the years, and we can't lose that focus on that. And you will see that if you had 3 years, 2 years, 1, you're going to see that that continually goes down. This is an area for growth for us. As students come in, we can't just throw them in with our students who have been here for more than 3 years. We have to find out where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses, and to be able to help fill that. And you'll see that on the last slide as well. Same thing for the years in mathematics. You're going to go through and see that 36% of our students who are with us more than 3 years are meeting versus 14 to 20% who are with us shorter than a year. Here's the next slide. When I talked about looking at our economically disadvantaged versus our non-economically disadvantaged, I'm not sure how many of us are aware of this. When we're looking at grades 3 through 5, we're at almost a 50-50 split here now. We're 49-51% of our student population who are economically disadvantaged. If we look at grades 6 through 9, we're at 46-54. So we have to find some more ways to be able to provide services for our students who don't have means at home to be able to get these supports. So this was a very eye-opening, so I actually put it as a chart because I wanted to bring it to people's attention that this is an area that we have to make sure that we are trying to focus on the students that don't have this. We talk about equity in the district. This is an equity thing. Someone who doesn't have the resource to be able to go outside of home for supports, we've got to be that for them. Then I also said, let's look at the demographic breakdown. And if we look at our demographic breakdown, this should hit home as well. So we have to find ways to be able to make sure that we have things that are culturally relevant for our students. And we've done a lot with SIOP in the last couple of years. We need to continue with this and to be able to provide supports so that we are meeting the needs of our various populations within our district. So I'm going to say that's the gist of where we're looking. The next couple slides I'm going to gloss over, and you're going to hear me say this every year about the sciences. So in science, 5th grade, you will see 30% of the state met or exceeded. Our district was at 21%. Science 8, the state is at 19%, the district is at 19.1%. Science 11, I put a little bit more information in here because it's super important to be able to see this. When we see the state is at 31% and the district is at 30%, so they're pretty much balanced. Why do we need this other information? If you look at this slide, you see that just over 50% of the students in 11th grade took this assessment. So it makes it very difficult to say where we are as a district in relationship to the state with Science 11. And then I went through in the far right side to talk about the percentage of students in each of the demographic areas that took this. And if you looked at the non-economically disadvantaged and the economically disadvantaged, you're going to see 42% of the non took this assessment, whereas 62% of the economically disadvantaged took this assessment. So this speaks volumes to the number of our students who are taking the 11th grade science, which is why I'm not going to say that I can tell you anything of value within this slide.
Well, why, doesn't everybody have to take the assessment or no?
The assessment is required for all 11th graders. However, parents have a right to refuse.
So what is the percentage of students that their parents, what is the percentage again of the kids that did not take it?
There were, is that 52? Guys, help me out here. 51% took the test, so 49% did not.
Do we know if that 42%, they were all had excused their parents?
I can't answer that. I can check, I can find that
I'm
out
just
for you.
curious.
But I can just tell you, I just can tell you that 49% did not take this assessment. Okay, dynamic learning maps. So this is going to be a really quick one. So dynamic learning maps are for a small percentage of our students who do not yet meet the standard of the grade level. Dave Rowe was going to come in and talk a little bit about this, so I'm going to do the best I can on this one. So the students that take this assessment, they have 4 scoring categories that they go into, which is emerging, approaching the target, at target, and advanced. And as we go through, you will see on this slide will be how our students in grades 3 through 5 fared in both buildings. And I'm sorry, I also put MHK in. I apologize because should not be MHK. That should be PLD and GNR. Then in 612 are the middle school and the high school students. But what I did on this last slide, which is where I want to talk a little bit about, is putting the district together. So last year in 2024, there were 36 students that took the DLM in English and in math. You will see in English, 50% of those students were proficient. In math, 42% of those students were proficient. Science, 14 students took it, and 50% of them were proficient. In 2025, we had 27 students in ELA and math take the DLM. 30% of those students were proficient in ELA and 44% proficient in math. 8 students took science, and 38% of those students were proficient. One of the questions we ask is, why does it look like we did poorer in the DLM than the prior year? And this becomes one of those things that once students are advanced or had met their target, they no longer take the DLM, they move on to the NJSLA. So this is not really an apples to apples comparison, because those students, once they've met that mark, they are out of this equation in here. Hopefully that makes sense. So our questions usually become, what are we doing now that we know this? So on the left-hand side, we're going to talk about what we are going to be looking at as central office, and on the right side, what administrators we're going to be working through in our meetings. So our next steps are discussing the cabinet meetings. Now, we gave you the global in our cabinet meetings. We're going to talk more granular. We're going to talk about specific grade levels, specific cohorts of students, and teacher data in here. So we're going to be discussing this in cabinet meetings. We will be talking through this in content meetings, and there will be individual teacher meetings to review the data. Throughout the year, and that will be happening shortly, throughout the year, we are looking through our resource, and I talk about resource management. Do we have the proper resources at hand? Are we using them in order to accelerate growth? Are they culturally responsive? Are they making sure they meet the needs of all of our students within our trajectory of growth? We're going to be having our data meetings throughout the year, discussing data at the various points that we collect the data. We will be doing walkthroughs with a focus on intentional grouping and not just grouping because, oh, these 3 kids sit together. We will be looking at focusing on data to inform instruction. We talk a lot about data, but if it's not about informing instruction, then it's just a matter of talking about numbers. And then we want to go through also look more closely at what students know and are ready to learn, and not just a one-size-fits-all. So that's going to be the areas that we will focus on for this year. And that concludes my slides. Questions?
Yes, Sandy, I have a question. For a couple of years, I know we've been trying to use some approaches to meet some type of state mandate requirements, and we've been using the same process. And even last year, I asked you if we can use some aggressive process or learn from skill set from other district or something that we can enhance or help our kids get to at least par level. This is very concerning to me to see from grade level 3 to high school that they should at least meet the state scoring. I know you keep saying we need to do additional work to meet those goals. What exactly is your now, from previous years, you've seen it's not working, it's obvious it's not working. What is your process or your timeline of what is going to be implemented and executed? Because I don't see a growth as much as I think we should see. I understand there's a lot of factors involved, but if you can give me some screenshot of what is your plan for our training, how to get instructions to our kids, and what is the system or whatever we need to use to help to navigate through this process.
All right, so that last slide that I showed you, so that I really expect to be able to have that type of question that you've just posed, because that has been a question that we've been working through. So one of the things that I'm going to tell you is that we have that last slide that I have here for next steps, that everything on the left-hand side will be happening within the next month. So this idea that we're going to be meeting, we're going to be going through individual data. What has happened? So though sometimes it looks like on paper it's similar, we have changed our approach. Oftentimes, and I said this to Mark, I said, sometimes I take for granted that people understand, and sometimes when you take a step back and when somebody asks a question, you're realizing, wait a minute, I just made the assumption that you knew what was happening. So I had to take, and I'm going to put this on me, I had to take a different approach and start coming to the table with, don't expect understanding unless you are presenting it for teaching's sake. So we are going through, and I always like to say we because it's nothing is a singleton person. So we are taking the approach of training our administrators in how to look at this data, how to be able to understand where students' starting points are, and where the growth aspect is. So that's where some of those new slides that you saw this time is that are students moving at all? And if they're moving, then they have the ability. We have to find a way to become much more aggressive rather than typical growth. How do we accelerate that growth? So I believe our very first thing is training all of our administrators, even our administrators who are accustomed to seeing this data, like what does the data actually mean? And how do we go through bringing this to our content meetings that once we're talking about it as a holistic school, how do we now bring it to a specific 6th grade math, a 7th grade ELA, a 5th grade math class? How do we bring this and to be able to explain to our teachers, here's what we're seeing. What do you see working in your classroom? And when a teacher says, hey, I see A, B, and C, part of our job is let's do some walkthroughs and see if we are agreeing with that. And if I come into your classroom and I see something really working, I need to be able to then be able to focus on you and say, hey, I need you as a model to be able to have somebody come in here to be able to see what's working. And if you think it's working and it really isn't, we need to have a conversation. And sometimes those conversations are hard conversations, but they're needed. And that's so when we talk about having these individual teacher meetings, that's where some of them will be. Some of our concerns that we've gotten, well, but you know, it's just those kids. We've got to get out of just those kids because all of these kids are ours and we have to find ways. One of the things that I'm hoping that happens this year, and this is really a vulnerability thing, is that when a teacher sees something not working, that they're comfortable enough to go to administrator and say, help. Like, I've tried this and it's not working. We're here to support, but we have to make sure our teachers know we're here to support and not judge. And I think that's building some of those things that we're going to be looking for. So all of those things on the right-hand side, some of these things are administrative-wise, is that we purchase, and one of the things that I say to every teacher and every administrator we hire, this board I've been here 21 years, has never said no to any instructional material that we have asked for. But now we have to be stewards of these resources. Are we using them appropriately? Or do we have too many of them and our teachers don't know which ones to use? So this is us starting to now hone in what is working and what's not working, and let's minimize what we're asking our teachers to do with all of these resources, that they're not really able to see that. So that's where some of that comes in, having those data meetings. One of the things that we did several years back that was very appropriate is we take tests, but do we ever actually talk to our students about what is the test that they're going to be taking? What is the purpose of the test? What are we doing with this data? And when we did that several years back, we saw such an increase because kids are like, oh, there's a purpose for this? You're not just telling me I'm sitting down doing this? And sometimes we forget that we need to do that because these are human beings in small bodies, but they still have a right to know the why behind things. So some of those things that we have to look at. But that very last bullet is something that I think is what we're going to try and focus this year, is that too often, and this is really a Markism, Mark has said this year after year, is that we all too often look at what our kids can't do. We need to start focusing on what our kids can do and what they're ready to learn next, and not just continually say, but they can't do, they can't. No, they can't do if we tell them they can't do. But if we tell them that here's what you're really good at, and here's what we are ready to go on to, those are some of those things that we're doing a little bit differently. So, and it's a heavy lift. I'm not going to tell you at the end of the year, I'm going to tell you that everything is going to be glowing, but I will tell you that if these approaches are followed throughout the district, we are going to see some, well, we should see some phenomenal things, and I hesitated when I just said that, is because the assessment is completely different. So what I will say to you is that the STAR data should be able to say that our actions are showing the growth, and that's what I would be able to present to you next year, saying that when everything we presented, our STAR data, as we all know, that is always very similar to our state, that here's what our resources and us looking through this have been able to produce. So I still believe at the end of the year or this time next year, I will be able to show you that growth that has taken place. So I'm very optimistic on that one. And I think, unfortunately, for people, I'm too honest. If I think something's broken, I'm going to tell you, but I do think this is something that we can do, but we need to all be on that same page working together.
Thank you, Sandy.
Hi. So I don't see this information in the presentation we have.
So I will upload this because there were some things that I was like, you know what, I didn't put this in there, and I didn't want to change it just before because then I'd have somebody saying, this isn't what was here when I looked at it at 5 o'clock, so I didn't want to do a bait and switch, but I will upload this, correct.
Also, another question is we mentioned that 49% have not taken the test, right? So what is the most common reason they would come up for not taking it? Was that any time analyzed or assessed?
The value of the assessment. I think I'm going to have to leave it at that and hoping that makes sense.
And who could, provide that push to make them understand the value of the assessment?
The state, if the assessment was an assessment that really was based on what our students are learning and the value of the questions were to be able, like our math and our ELA data, the value of those assessments provides a lot of things for our teachers to be able to understand what our kids know and are able to do. We don't get as much in the science that we do in the math and ELA.
Right, but is there anything from our end, we can deliver that to the students? It's for their own good, right? Unless they take the assessment, we cannot gauge, right? We cannot measure.
So I'm trying to be good about this. If every student took it, I'm not sure how much valuable data we would get anyway.
I mean, that's debatable, right?
I'm trying to be as politically correct as I can be with giving you the
Because
information.
there is a reason why state is conducting these tests, right? If there is no value.
Federally, they need to assess.
I mean,
Mark, help me out without me sticking.
We're talking specifically about the science assessment at the
Mostly
high school.
Science 11, yep.
Right, I mean, so one could argue that it doesn't have the priority, it's not perceived to have the priority, it's not a graduation requirement, so it doesn't have the same level of intensity for students to feel the need to take it, because it really has no bearing on where they are. So I'm not saying that's right, but I'm just giving you it's a have to,
It's the
we have
reality.
to administer it, but it's definitely ranks lower on the tier of priority for people to take it.
understood, but if there are any steps that can be taken towards that, it's for their betterment, right? That would be really appreciated. Hope you get my point.
I do. I do understand where you're coming. As I said, I think if our students and our teachers received valuable information, I think it would be a different ballgame. Because our other testing, we are nowhere near that. We have more than 90% of our students assessed in every other level.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Sandy, I just have a few questions. Just want to make sure I understand. If we go to slide 18, what do the highlighted green numbers on the side mean?
I have to find out which one is 18, Jean. Give me a second.
It's year-over-year mathematics.
Okay.
You just passed it. What do on the right
Those
hand?
green on the side means that we are students that are moving, so in this case that we have third grade, that we have increased over the last 4 years by more than 13.6% of our students are now meeting or exceeding versus what they were doing in 2022.
Okay, so you just wanted to highlight anything over 10?
Yes, anything that was
Okay.
over 10%, I highlighted as though that was accelerated growth, whereas I said the other ones are like typical growth is what we'd see, that we're really keeping in line with where we were.
Okay. And then in I believe it was like 2019, 2020, our math scores were low for like grades 5 through 8. Are the kids or the students that were in 5th grade, are they in 9th grade now?
In 2019.
In 2019, 2020 school year.
So we
Because then
have,
the COVID hit too, right? So doesn't that fall into, because during COVID.
they would be
they
12th
had-
graders now if
They would be
I
12th graders?
calculated correctly.
Okay.
Who was a 12th grader? 2019, your child was in 6th grade? In the COVID? Yes. See? Good.
Okay. All right, because they were behind, well, I forgot what it was called, because of the pandemic, their numbers were behind. I forgot what it was. What was it?
Proficiency levels?
The
The learning loss. Yeah, thank you.
Thank
I was
you.
like trying to figure out what you were talking.
Right. So the learning loss, is it possible that the learning loss from the pandemic is still affecting the kids now?
So
Because I think, I'm sorry,
research,
to cut you off,
that's
but I
okay.
think we had the resources to try to bring them up because of that learning loss only the year after, right? So what was that, in 2021, 2022? But we haven't done anything as far as learning loss since then. So do you think that maybe that would also be helpful, or that could be a reason?
So two things. Research usually says that after 3 years, that you should be able to make up for any of that learning loss. Then the second thing is that particular cohort that you looked at, if you remember when it was in the summer, I believe it was in August when I did the NJGPA, where we talked about those students who were with us really showed substantial growth because they were meeting or exceeding expectations in the NJGPA, so that validates that one, that they have grown. You asked me another question, Jean, that I was just putting.
And then the resources, do you think that those
thank
summer
you.
resources would be helpful?
So those resources, so one of the things that we did, there were a couple things that came out of the pandemic that were good, believe it or not. One of them being is that in all of our curriculum documents, if you remember, we have like a purple area that were the prerequisite skills. We've kept that in there because that's really important for a teacher to say, well, so-and-so isn't right here, but they have a resource to be able to go back and say, what is it that they need prior to this? So that's one of the things that we were able to do. Some of the resources that were completely digital, we have done away with, because what we learned over the couple years after the pandemic is we became too heavily reliant on computers and the internet, that our brick and mortar was suffering and our students' scores were below because of that. So we've tried to, and I say try to, keep the resources that we believe that were valuable. I still believe we have too many resources in some areas, which is why we have to still go through and do that resource training and see what's working in there. So I think we have kept those things that I think we believe to be very valuable, and we gradually remove those things that were good at that time.
Okay, and I just have one more question. Let's pick a slide, slide 19. When we're looking at
Is that this one?
non-economically disadvantaged number.
No, not this
No, that's not that one.
Tell me what the top of the slide is, Jean, please.
It says Mathematics 3, 2024, 2025.
Come on, sorry.
Sorry, I just want to make sure I
It's
understand
okay.
the numbers.
Right there.
All right, so when we're looking at the non-economically disadvantaged and the economically disadvantaged, right? Are we adding those two numbers to then get?
Close to 100%.
No, I'm saying, are we adding those numbers to get any of the numbers up top?
Oh, so the demographics with our Hispanic, Asian, African American, white, multi are really one set of demographics that you're looking at. Then the next one is our non-economically disadvantaged and our economically disadvantaged. They should equal all of those other groups up above. So we have some of our Hispanic students that are economically disadvantaged, some of our Hispanics are non-economically disadvantaged. So each of those demographics falls into one of those categories. So it's not a clear mix that these two are economically disadvantaged and these two are non. It could be in any of those ethnic groups can have either economically disadvantaged or non-economically disadvantaged. And then when we go to our students with disabilities and our multilingual learners, they also will fall into the non-economic disadvantaged and economic disadvantaged, as well as one of those demographic cohorts.
All right, thanks so much.
No problem.
Hi, Sandy. We used to look at the instruction materials. Like you said, we used to invest, we have invested quite a bit in the instructional materials and a professional training to go with the instructional materials. But the reason for a lot of that transition in the past years has been that our materials did not align with state standards, and that was being reflected in some of our test scores. Teachers are not prepared to handle that kind of material in the classroom, requiring more professional development. So that's been years and years since those discussions have been had. Are we still facing an issue where there's a gap between what we're teaching, what we're using to teach, and what's being evaluated in terms of state standards?
So I think, Bob, for some of our areas, some of it is professional development, because as we get new teachers, I believe we do the same thing that I had said I do, is that you just make an assumption that they're coming in and they know the East Windsor way. And we have to do a better job. So some of the things that our administrators do really well is we onboard our teachers, but when you have an onboarding for 3 days, it's not then it's done. It's a continual onboarding. So that PD is a consistent. Our new teachers do have mentors and they have people to help support them, but we have to make sure, and this is part of some of the data that we're going to be talking about with our administrators, that when we see that we have some of our non-tenured, whether they have experience or not, we need to make sure that they're understanding all of the resources that we have, and don't just take for granted because you taught math in 6th grade somewhere else that you understand our resource. So some of our issues in the past have been our resources were not aligned. I don't believe that that's where we are, whether we're using our resources to the best of our ability with all of our students, looking at what they know and what they're ready to learn. I think that's part of where we have what we have deciphered through some of this. So until we are actually meeting our students where they are, and not that this is where every 7th grader should be, and I'm going to start teaching at this level, we know we're going to have very few students that are here. We're going to have them at both ends. So how are we meeting the needs of all the students in there? And that's some of the areas that we're going to be focused on within this year. And I think one of the things that I really want to point out is we don't want to take for granted that this is just happening. We want to be intentional about us focusing on that, as well as our teachers focusing on that in our classroom. And our teachers can't do it until we first are trained and then be able to go through to help support them in there.
Just to follow up on that. So, again, we used to be very granular about where the skills were lacking as being measured by the state. Are we still able to identify clusters of skill sets, both in reading, writing, and mathematics, where we are somehow, that there are patterns in the data as to where either instructional methods or materials are not meeting the needs of the kids?
Yeah, we are still able to do it, and I think, Bob, that's part of where some of those things that we just assume that people were using these correctly, that is where that training has to come back in, and that's where, like, I keep feeling like I'm going to be saying the same thing, and I apologize if I sound like that, but I think part of it is we've made too many assumptions, and we have to get out of those assumptions and start doing some retraining. And if you know it, that's really great. You can help your colleagues, but we have to do our part in that retraining in there. And some of those skill sets that you're talking about, our data is very, very clear in those skill sets, whether it's the state data and using evidence tables, or whether it's our STAR data and being able to bring down in our STAR data and some of our other resources, talk about what our students know and what they're ready to learn, and we have to retrain our teachers how to use that. And we also talk about that formative assessments that you're doing every single day in your classroom. Like we are doing, our teachers are doing that every day. Are they using that to intentionally form groups? Are they doing that intentionally, creating the space for the students who are struggling to be able to move to grade level? Are they intentionally using that data to accelerate the students that are ready to be accelerated? Those are those areas that, because we don't want to just focus on the students who aren't quite there. We want to make sure that we're looking at our students who are in the middle and need to continue in that trajectory. The students that are struggling, how do we move them to grade level, as well as our students who are ready to advance, so that we can move our district all together on that. But yes, I do believe we have the resources to do it. We just have to be able to put them back into place.
Any other questions? No? Okay. Paul, can you also add this to old business, so if questions come up for our next meeting, we can talk about it then as well? Thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy.
Okay. We will now move on to our superintendent's report.
Okay, good evening. I will begin just by thanking Sandy for that presentation. Obviously, student achievement continues to be kind of our primary objective here. When we're having discussions regarding student progress, especially compared to the state, obviously we would like to exceed the state performance. I will just say this, and it's not an excuse. I just think that when we look at our school district, I think even since I've been here, we've had a pretty significant shift in demographics, and I'm not making any excuses. I just think that I know sometimes there's a temptation for us to, as we're nestled between a Robbinsville and the West Windsor Plainsboro, we have starkly different demographic makeup within our school district. For example, we have a 25% multilingual learner, first-generation immigrant population. As you saw in the presentation, approaching 50% free and reduced lunch eligibility. So I just think that those are gifts, but those are challenges, and we don't have a homogeneous structure in our community. And I think that our teachers work extremely hard. I think that we've been very intentional regarding providing resources that we think are aligned with standards. I'm going to talk a little bit about our professional development day that we had today. We've also tried to ensure that we are providing teachers with relevant professional development. So I think that we'll continue to stay the course, but I think that we've got some real opportunity here for growth, and I think we have to look at those places where we see it and look to capitalize on it. And I also want to make sure that Sandy didn't mention this. She mentioned it briefly, but I do want to make sure that when we look at the data, we look at student performance, that we are leveraging those teachers that have that evidence of moving the needle with students and really capitalizing on what they do within classrooms. So our administrative team will continue to stay focused and committed to student achievement, but I think that there are a host of variables that I think make it challenging, but I do think the challenge is obviously worthwhile. But I definitely don't want to lose sight of the hard work and the good work and the deliberate work that's happening within each of our schools each day. So I will just talk a little bit about, we did have a professional development day today. I think we called it an in-service day for staff. For the past 3 years, we've been designating a day for professional development. Not to say that it doesn't occur at other times throughout the school year, but oftentimes we're capitalizing on beyond the school day content meetings and faculty meetings, which is a part of where we are. And occasionally we'll have a cohort of teachers being trained during the school day, but we typically like to shy away from that because we would like to keep teachers in front of our students. So today we did have our annual professional development day. We started the day with a keynote address by Carlos Ojeda Jr. It's really just as an opportunity to kind of inspire our teachers, our educators who were present, talked about his journey as a multilingual learner, as a student who was deaf, didn't realize he was deaf until he was about 22 years old. Just talked about the impact of educators on his experience and really helping him realize who he was as he transitioned to college and beyond. So that was the start of the day. Then beyond that, we kind of broke things up into kind of a 6-12, and I'll call it a for us by us, meaning that our administrators and our teachers engaged in facilitating the majority of our workshops today. So host of topics, whether it's engaging students, differentiated instruction, co-teaching. Our K-2 teachers, though, did have their ongoing professional development related to Leader in Me. So that was a full day experience for them. So I thought the day was productive. I said to the group this morning that oftentimes I believe that in our district, the majority of our challenges that we face, we have the talent within our district to kind of move us forward. So I think it's always a great opportunity when we have our folks supporting, learning with and learning from one another. Quick update on Hightstown High School principal. So as we heard from our student representative tonight, and as I shared with the community, Mr. Vinson, he's on the agenda tonight. He'll be staying with the district through the end of the school year. We've reopened the search for the principal, and we'll be confident that we'll have a successor in place to transition for the upcoming school year, and I definitely appreciate Mr. Vinson's service and commitment to the high school community. Parents should have received recently some communication from each of our schools, our 312, not actually all schools, let me clarify that, connected to the New Jersey School Climate Survey. We initially administered this survey last year. This survey is connected to, it's actually a partnership between Rutgers University and the New Jersey Department of Education. And there are several domains, and we have a student version, and the student version is for students in grades 3 through 12. We have a staff version of the survey, and we also have a parent caregiver version of the survey. So all families should have received a communication, a link. I think we had a green light date of October 1st, I believe, and we'll leave that open for parents, but I strongly encourage parents to complete the survey. We'll be scheduling opportunities for our students in grades 3 through 12. It's not a very long survey to complete that. And then we're finding different pockets to get the feedback from our staff. So, you know, one of our strategic plan goals is a culture climate goal. We believe the domains are useful. They're relevant to us in terms of seeking feedback. You know, some of the domains connected to our student survey are things like student voice, you know, social emotional supports, student-teacher relationships. So we believe that there's great value there. So be on the lookout for that. Parents, I encourage you to please complete that survey to give us a parent perspective in terms of what you're experiencing. Also, in recent, a few weeks ago, actually, I guess towards the beginning of the school year, somewhat of a surprising announcement that the data that we reviewed tonight was connected to the NJSLA. The New Jersey Department of Education indicated that they would no longer move forward with Pearson, who was the company that had the contract for the state assessment. That contract went to a company called Cambium, and they're changing the format of the assessment. So the spring assessment that students will take in the spring, both the NJSLA and also the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment, the NJGPA, they're changing the format of that assessment to an adaptive assessment. Several states have adopted this prior to New Jersey. The belief is that, you know, when students are completing the assessment, depending on how they're answering questions, it modifies the level. It's still based on the grade level, but it either accelerates kind of the rigor of the questions, or it kind of provides a lower level of questioning just to get a feel for students, to enable them to kind of move forward more authentically throughout the assessment. So the feedback is that the results of the assessment should be somewhat more aligned with where students are with their specific learning ability. So the state has decided, the New Jersey Department of Education has decided that because this is a new format of assessment, there will be a field test that will be implemented this fall. Excuse me. So this field test is really so the Department of Education can, I guess, work out the kinks, as it were, before the official administration of the assessments will take place this spring. So the game plan, there's a window of time beginning at the end of October through the middle of November. Right now, and these dates might be slightly modified, but our students in grades 3 through 5 will take the field test in both language arts and mathematics on October 29th and 30th. Our middle school students will participate in the field test on November 12th and 13th. This information you should be getting this, families should be getting this information directly from your child's principal. And our high school students will be participating in the field test also October 29th and October 30th. So, so stay tuned. Once again, the field test, there's no score for specific students connected to the field test. It's really just a trial run of sorts for the Department of Education to kind of logistically determine what's appropriate for students when they sit down to take the real deal in the spring. The upcoming Board of Education meeting, October 27th, there will be a report, an update related to the Student Safety Data System, SSDS. It's a state requirement that districts provide a report of sorts regarding the scoring the data that's related to that. So this, the report on the 27th will be based on the reporting period, the second reporting period from the prior school year. So it'll be from January 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2025. What that report contains is kind of based on certain incidents that happen within the school, and depending on the category of those incidents, there's a requirement that we input that data into a system that's connected to the Department of Education. So what's included in that data are incidents related to violence, vandalism, substance abuse not involving tobacco, weapons, and confirmed HIB cases. There's also going to be some data related to a anti-bullying or HIB self-assessment that each of our schools also complete. So Lauren O'Brien, who's the district's anti-bullying coordinator, also the supervisor of counseling, will be here to present that information at the upcoming board meeting. Being the month of October, we just completed the Week of Respect. That was last week. During the week of October 20th will be School Violence Awareness Week, which is state recognition of sorts, a Department of Education recognition. And that week is geared towards reinforcing, teaching, educating students on the importance of, obviously, violence prevention, but also conflict resolution, bullying prevention in particular as well, but also tolerance within the school setting. So there'll be some, at each of our school levels, some level of intentionality to highlight the importance of violence awareness during that week. I'd mentioned that to the board, and I think we've communicated this to the community, that we were in the process of needing to relocate our staff who are currently assigned to the White House on Stockton Street. White House is an aging building, great character, but just not something that we believe is really a good investment at this point for the upkeep and upgrades that are kind of associated with it. So the district recently did purchase a property on Academy Street. Our maintenance department engaged in the renovations associated with that. And that building will house our Buildings and Grounds Department, kind of the hub of our Buildings and Grounds Department in terms of our director and our maintenance supervisor and custodial supervisor. In addition to that, we'll also have our Student Registration Services Department, who will be also housed there. So shout out to our maintenance department. They did an excellent job on getting the building up. It looks like completely transformed when we first purchased it, so we're excited. We believe it's housed in a central location. It's easily accessible for members of our community when families are registering their children within our schools, and I think it's a quality work environment for our staff who represent those departments. A quick reminder that next week, Monday, October 20th, schools will be closed in recognition of Diwali, and I believe that concludes my report. Thank you.
I have a question about the survey. I got it today. Is that a template that's sent out, or does the district work with someone to come up with the questions and responses?
So we don't do anything with the questions.
Oh, they just come?
That is, there's various domains. The questions are housed under those domains. That comes to us from, it's really the New Jersey School Climate Platform.
Oh, okay.
Which is a collaboration between Rutgers University and the Department of Education. So that's not us.
Oh, okay.
All right?
Okay, I was just curious. Because the way that you have to answer them, there's no in between. It's like
They're
agree, strong.
forcing
I
you.
know, but that's kind of hard because
Yeah.
sometimes you don't disagree or agree. You're just like in the
Yeah.
middle. So I didn't know who came up with those.
Yeah, and I think there's some science behind that, but we didn't come up with that.
Any other questions?
I do have a few questions. The first question is the trial test, right? Is that something that the parents can opt their students not to take? Or is it because it's a trial, they have to take it?
You know what? That's a good question. I put it this way: for the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, the actual test that will occur in the spring, parents can opt their child out of that. In regards to the field test, I'd have to double check that. Look, here's what I'll say: the field test there's no negative bearing for a student. We're not reporting out an individual score. It's really just to help the state norm it and make sure that we believe it's as relevant and appropriate as possible for the spring. So there's no negative impact to a child apart from having to just participate in it. So I can get back to you on that. I mean, I would encourage folks to take it because I just think that I'm trying to make sure that the conditions for students in the spring are as best we can have them. I'm a little concerned about the amount of standardized assessments that students are participating in at the state level, but that's a conversation for another day. But this field test, here's what I would prefer. I would not have an issue with the field test right now. Not that, it concerned me that as a school district, we did not get informed about this until we kind of came back to school or the latter part of the summer. So it was kind of a surprise to us. So it's just another thing that you have to schedule. And, I completely understand the need for a field test. I think it just feels to me a little rushed to do the field test in the fall and do the assessment in the spring. I'd feel more comfortable if we did the field test in the fall and then we did not test in the spring and then implemented the following year.
Okay, so then that means that all the districts in New Jersey are taking the field test?
Everyone.
Okay. Thank you. I do have
That's it?
another
That's it?
question.
That's it?
No, I have
Oh,
another question that's
okay.
totally unrelated.
Okay.
Electric school buses, how are they coming along? Do the people love them? How are they on efficiency?
The feedback thus far has been positive. I haven't heard any complaints. Paul, have you heard any complaints? No. So far, so good.
We had one complaint where a parent came up and it was a safety concern that every time the bus stopped at their stop, they claimed the bus driver was turning off the bus, not realizing it was an electric bus. So that's probably the worst thing we've heard so far.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, we will now move on to our first opportunity for board member comments. Any members of the board have a comment? There being none, we will move on to our first opportunity for public comment. Any members of the public wish to comment, please come to the podium, state your name, sign in to the book on the left-hand side, and we have a 3-minute talk time. And also to speak, just press the little button on the bottom with a face that looks like they're talking. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Meiswinkle. I live in the Twin Rivers section of East Windsor. I've been there for 18 years. I'm a U.S. Army veteran, retired police officer, served in New Brunswick, and an attorney. I'm the father of 3 children, the grandfather of 4, and I am running as a Republican for the city council or town council with Barry Greenstein and Anna Lustenberg. I'm here not in any adversarial manner, but we have a big problem, and you've been addressing it in some of the statistics you're showing. It's almost as if the urban areas are a state of emergency, we might say. We're in bad shape when we compare it to the rest of other countries, and especially in the urban areas. The statistics that we were shown, at least what I grabbed off the internet, was that math proficiency, 33% only. Reading proficiency, 44%. And science proficiency, 22%. That's not too good. I see how the statistics are set up to say not yet meeting expectations, partially meeting expectations, approaching expectations, and then we have meeting, finally we meeting. Now, I don't blame anybody here for that. You've inherited a tough situation. We all have. As a nation, we have. And as the United States of America, if it's to prosper, we're dealing here with the bedroot, the grassroots of our society. These kids, these young children, from the littlest ones to the seniors. And we go on a stage, a national stage or international stage, to have to compete. That's not good. The reason I'm here is because I see a problem. And there's a problem that needs to be solved through people like yourself, through teachers, through parents, through the whole society getting behind your efforts. My colleagues that are running with, we thought one of the things that we could suggest was a sort of a liaison so we could better understand the situation. The 62% of our tax bill, and we've been paying taxes, I own a townhouse for 18 years, goes to the school system. And as you all know, the school system, for the most part, unfortunately, is failing. So the question is, how do we get it to pass? And that's what we're all about. We were thinking maybe a liaison where one of us on the council, if we win, could basically try to understand what you have to understand and maybe
30
make
seconds,
some proposals, because the tax dollar, the most significant part of it, as I said, 62% of it, there has to be accountability, and that's not just for us, but it's accountability for the country, if the country is to prosper. Thank you very much.
Mr. Meiswinkle, can you please sign in? Sign your name and address on the clipboard there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Okay, please approach this podium, state your name and address, and please sign in on the clipboard. Thank you.
All right. Barry Greenstein, 21 Wendover Road, East Windsor, New Jersey. Okay. Good evening, members of the board, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I wish to be fully transparent. I am first vice president of the Heightstown East Windsor Republican Club and a candidate for East Windsor Township Council. I want to address the situation at Heightstown High School relative to the principal's position. I won't get into the specifics of Mr. Finkel's situation as to rescinding of his contract and the reasons why that was done, which I do agree with, as that may be the subject of litigation. Hopefully not, because as taxpayers, we pay approximately 68% of our property taxes to the education system. I would like to know the process for selecting a principal, such as, is it posted as a promotional opportunity within the school district so qualified teachers and administrators in this school district would have an opportunity first? It seems like we should have a program in place to develop future leaders based on merit and performance among teachers and encourage them to get their master's degree and principal certification. That way, viable candidates can have the opportunity for growth within the East Windsor Regional School District. I see that at Perry L. Drew, Ms. Erin Servillo was appointed interim principal while the principal was on a leave of absence, and I think that is a great move. I thank Mr. Vincent for stepping back in to serve as interim principal, as he has always done a good job, but surely an interim principal from within could have been chosen while a search is being done for a permanent replacement, and meanwhile, maybe that interim principal could turn out to be ideal and grow into the job. Relative to the hiring of Mr. Finkel as HHS principal, that was done by a recommendation by the superintendent, and I'm sure that was done in good faith and based on positive past interaction in another school district. However, I feel each board member should vet that prospective principal in both the open forum here and for any questions relative to any personal information or salary, that can be done in executive session. The former interaction gives the opportunity for stakeholder observation and perhaps input before a decision is made. Hiring and rescinding or firing a highly compensated managerial employee by a personnel action on the staffing portion of the agenda doesn't seem to be sufficient. That staffing report contains so many items, from LOAs to retirement to extra pay for stipends to new hires, and that should also be examined in detail by every Board of Education member. I could give you an example from several years ago where the drama club at Hightstown High School paid a teacher at Krebs a stipend of, I believe, $2,000 to $2,500 to keep expense records for a school play that took a few hours in total, and several parents had offered to handle that for free. All I am asking for is more attention to detail and transparency. I thank you for your time and listening to the concerns of your community.
Thank you very much. We have another member of the public. Again, please state your name and address and sign in on the clipboard. Thank you.
Thank you, members of the board. My name is Skygill Martin. I live at 38 Powell Court in Hightstown. That is part of my comment, just for the location. Obviously, the school here is on the very far edge of the Hightstown East Windsor border. Where I live in Wyckoff Mill is on the other far end of the Hightstown Cranberry border in East Windsor. I want to congratulate you on your fabulous new scoreboard and sound system, which I believe was fairly expensive. But I also want to comment that the last game could be heard inside everyone's home on the far side of Hightstown. So I hope with the technical specialties of that machine that maybe the volume could be adjusted so that the whole town doesn't have to listen to the football game if they aren't in looking for that. That's all. There's been a lot of commentary throughout Hightstown, a lot of complaints, a lot of concern, especially because we do have noise ordinances in this community. That's it. But while I'm talking about volume, I will let you guys all know that from the back of the room, it is very hard to hear and understand all of you. So perhaps you guys could all turn up your volume a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Please approach the podium, state your name and address, and sign in on the clipboard. Thank you. Hit the little button on the bottom right, and it'll turn the mic on red.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yatin, and I am a senior at Robbinsville High School. And I had a couple of questions after looking at this presentation. So after going over the data from Science 11, I noticed that over 40% of the people don't take the test. Wouldn't that negatively or positively skew the results, actual results of the test by limiting the population who actually take it? And what steps are you doing to convince people who didn't take the test to take the test? And furthermore, what steps are you taking to improve the scores of the test for the people who are about to take it? What pre-steps are you taking for the younger grades for when they actually take the test?
Could you sign in, please?
Can you please state your name and address and also sign in? Thank you.
Should I state it here as well? Okay. Hi there, my name's Kevin Aurora. I'm from Robbinsville High School as well. I'm a senior. My address is 21 Amberfield Road. And my first question was, I saw that it was, in many of those like graphics, those charts, it was based on races and ethnicities. And then there was a separate, more broad category based on ED or economically disadvantaged or non-ED. So my first question really was just, how is that determined? Because I think that could have a very significant impact on the type of way that measurements are calibrated, and then also like how factors are influenced, just based on how you're measuring who counts as ED or non-ED. That was my first. I have another question, so I can wait.
This is really just for you to make statements. We don't necessarily respond. We're not required by law to respond. Our superintendent has the option to if he'd like, so you can just keep saying all of your statements. Thanks.
Sounds good. My bad. This is my first BoE
No, that's
meeting.
okay. Not everybody knows the way it works, so thank you. And I thank you for speaking up and participating in the civil process here.
Right. So my second question was just a little bit of context. I run a statewide volunteer initiative called Mission Impact, which has currently helped over 450,000 individuals in New Jersey. And we provide volunteer opportunities to high schoolers throughout the state. And my question regarding this was just what kind of community service opportunities are provided to students at Hightstown High School. And yes, this didn't really have that much to do with the NJSLA information or the slides in general. I just thought I'd make the most of my opportunity here and just bring it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can respond. You posed a question regarding economically disadvantaged students. Those are students who are eligible for free or reduced lunch. And in terms of service opportunities, I would ask you, I would encourage you to reach out to the high school principal because we have a plethora of opportunities here, but if you wanted to get a specific response, I would encourage you to reach out to the administration of the high school. All right?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you again. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Okay, there being none, I'm sorry. You've snuck up on there. Thank you. Just state your name and address, and also please sign on the clipboard. Also, the mic is off the bottom right. There you go.
All right, awesome. Yeah, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Ryan Kelly. I live on 121 First Avenue in Hightstown. It's the best block. I'm just kidding. Everyone's block is, I'm also a research practitioner, and I'm a doctoral candidate in the Doctor of Education program at Gwynedd Mercy University. Before anyone gets upset, I'd like to ask, did you not just hear the student representative share that students were overwhelmingly ecstatic to have their principal back? That should tell us something important. I don't like to lean on credentials, but everything I'm saying tonight is grounded in peer-reviewed educational research, not politics. So please open your eyes and ears to the evidence, and not to those who would use our children's education as a game to further an individual political run for office. So I'm here to support the board's decision to extend or unretire Principal Dennis Vinson and to reopen a rigorous, transparent search for Hightstown High School's next leader. One, the students benefit most from effective, stable principal leadership. That isn't opinion, it's evidence. 2 decades of research synthesis show that principals have a large and school-wide impact on student achievement, attendance, teacher retention, and school climate. In fact, the quality of a school's principal ranks among the most powerful in a school's factors after classroom teaching. 2, rapid leadership churn, it hurts schools. Continuity during transitions, it protects students and it protects staff. Multiple studies link principal turnover with lower student achievement and higher teacher turnover. The effects are that it can be especially harmful in high-need schools. Extending an experienced leader to stabilize the building while you complete a careful search aligns with what the research recommends during those sensitive transitions. And again, the students love their current principal. Don't break a system that currently works. 3, some say, and I've seen this circulated in a newsletter, just have an assistant principal step in. It sounds simple. But evidence says readiness varies and the role is not interchangeable with the principalship. Assistant principals or APs, they are vital, but their duties and preparation differ widely across districts. The Wallace Foundation's comprehensive review finds that while APs can be an effective pipeline to the principalship, districts should not assume every AP is immediately prepared to assume full building leadership without targeted selection, development, and support.
30 seconds,
Conflating the
please.
roles risks setting someone up to struggle and risks the school's progress. Extending an experienced interim principal is a prudent bridge strategy backed by evidence on successful pipelines. I'm just going to skip down to my closing. I'm just going to say, you know, the research is clear. Principals are among the most powerful in-school influences on student success. Stability during leadership transitions are important. They protect the school, they protect the community. I also want to thank you for your presentation on the data. I think we saw 2 different data presentations. It looks like the school is actually doing better, and there are ways
Time,
to
please.
interpret that, but I mean, good job.
Can you sign in, please? Right there on this side.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak? Okay, there being none, we are going to move into our executive session, and we'll be about 15 minutes. Okay, we are back. We are going to move on to old business, basically right there. We have a list of our upcoming committee meetings. And Paul, you're going to add the NJSLA on there for us so we can address it in the future if we need to have any other questions asked. We now move on to our second opportunity for board member comments. Having no board members that wish to speak, we will move on to our second opportunity for public comments. Any members of the public wish to speak? Okay, please approach the podium, state your name and address, and then also sign in on the clipboard. Thank you, Paul.
Hi, hope you guys can see me down here. I just wanted to introduce myself.
You can take that with you, you can step out so you can see.
I'm okay. I'm Jessica DeFalco. I am running for one of the open seats for next year. So this is my first meeting, and just kind of see how things are going. And yeah, just wanted to say hi and show my face. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessica. If you can just sign in with your name and address, that would be great. And I also wanted to say thank you. I noticed you on Zooming in for the county board meeting. So that was really great to see your face there, and that they offered that opportunity for, I don't even know what they call that. When there's no one running against you, you will be part of the board. Unopposed. Thank you. Yeah. That's great. Great. Thank you. And thanks for coming here to introduce yourself. Thank you again. Any other members of the public wish to speak? Okay, there being none, we will move on to number 9.
Mandated policies for second reading. Policy A, Policy 0177, Professional Services. B, Policy 1570, Internal Controls. Policy C, Policy 2422, Statutory Curricular Requirements. D, Policy 5339.01, Student Sun Protection. E, Policy 6111, Special Education Medicaid Initiative, SEMI Program. F, Policy 6220, Budget Preparation. G, Policy 0174, Legal Services. And H, Policy 1620, Administrative Employment Contracts.
Second.
Any questions? Please poll the board.
Ms. Brijoli?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes.
Mr. Laverty?
Yes.
Ms. Mahiri?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes. Item 10.
Recommended policies for second reading. A, Policy 0173, Duties of Public School Accountant. B, Policy 1636.01, Notification of Promotion, New Job, and Transfer Opportunities. C, Policy 0143, Board Member Election and Appointment.
Second.
Any questions? Please poll the board.
Ms. Brijoli?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes.
Mr. Laverty?
Yes.
Ms. Mahiri?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes. Item 11.
Mandated regulations for second reading. A, R1570, Internal Controls.
Second.
Any questions? Please poll the board.
Ms. Brijoli?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes.
Mr. Laverty?
Yes.
Ms. Mahiri?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes. Item 12.
Having read the materials received, I move that the board approve the routine agenda items as submitted. A, staffing for October 13th, 2025. B, HIB report from September 29th, 2025. C, approved curriculum document. D, approved travel and related expenses. E, Hightstown High School Library Ambassadors Uncompensated Club. F, approved new field trip sites. G, surplus property disposal, MHK. H, out of district placement. I, tuition contract agreement with Thomas J. Rubino Academy, 2025-26, articulation agreement, alternative education, middle school and high school program. J, transportation jointure. K, tuition rates for non-resident students. L, board meeting minutes approval. M, report of the board secretary and financial report, August 2025. N, expense and transfer reports of school monies report for August 2025. And O, bill list of October 13th, 2025.
Second.
Any questions?
Hi, I do have a question for D, 12D. When it talks about, there's a staff member that's going to Monroe to check out their, it's called Observing Today's Effective Math Classrooms in Monroe, New Jersey. Does that mean that they're going to be going to their district to check out the district, or does that mean that that's like a conference that they're going to?
That's one of our supervisors. It appears she's going to be observing classroom instruction at Monroe. But it's a part of it looks like it's part of an initiative where she'll be observing instructional practices in the math classroom under the special education umbrella.
Okay, so does that mean that, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. Does that mean that their program is like top tier and it's like, oh, what are they doing for us to move our program to that?
It could just be, they could be engaged in an initiative where they may have started something new, different, and they're providing the opportunity for people to see it. So the fact that it's our student services supervisor, I believe it's probably under the special education umbrella, maybe just a unique program that they may be modeling.
All right, thanks so much.
I just had a question for D. Oh, no, not D. I'm sorry. The field trips, F. It said that the sixth grade's going to see Aladdin. Is that for a particular reason? Just curious.
Probably band.
Is it a band trip?
I actually don't know, but Aladdin's a great musical to sing.
I just feel bad because a lot of the classes don't get to go on trips, and that's a really nice trip.
I think it may be connected to music, but I'll get back to you with the specifics.
I think I heard Mrs. Felicetta say yes. Music department per Mrs. Felicetta in the back of the room. Any other questions? Okay. Please poll the board.
Ms. Bergioli?
Yes.
Ms. Concepcion?
Yes.
Ms. Drake?
Yes.
Ms. LaRusso?
Yes.
Mr. Laverty?
Yes.
Ms. Mahiri?
Yes.
Ms. Patel?
Yes.
Ms. Lands?
Yes. We have no need for a second exec session this evening, so that will conclude our board meeting. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great night.